Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Voices That Heal. This is your girl Jams. I'm so excited to be with you tonight. I have a really great conversation for you. Before we start, let's go through a little bit of housekeeping and a little bit of announcements. First and foremost, this conversation is happening live via the Heal Facebook page and their YouTube as well. So make sure if you are not following Heal Collaborative, you join and check them out. But also, if you have questions, concerns, thoughts, or if you just want to show general love to the ladies tonight who are having this conversation, please feel free to use the comment feature on either of those two platforms, and we'll be able to weave your conversation into ours. I want to also make sure that I thank the folks that help keep this running and going together, all the folks behind the scenes that help me bring this podcast to life, especially Heal for giving me the opportunity to have these conversations. And before we jump into the show, make sure you register for the second annual African American Lung Cancer Patient and Caregiver Summit happening in Houston, Texas this April from the 24th to the 26th. And if you don't have any information on that or you need more information, please let me know. I will leave the link in the chat later on this evening. So for those folks that don't know, again, my name is Jaymie. I am a stage 4 lung cancer survivor. I was diagnosed in December of 2018. And if you do the math, that is almost year 7. December of this year will be year 7, which is in some categories a little bit sort of amazing. To be honest, the lung cancer survival rate is usually 5 years or less. And so there's a lot more of us who are living longer than that. And that's exactly what this conversation is going to be about. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce or bring on my two ladies who are the guests for this evening. You may recognize them. They are some familiar faces and some OGs in the lung cancer community. And if you don't know, you better get familiar. So I'm going to bring them on one at a time, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So coming to the stage first is Natalie Brown. So Natalie, go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little bit of your story.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Natalie Brown, and I am a lung cancer survivor, former patient, advocate, and founder of Lung Cancer Awareness Foundation. Unfortunately, in 2020, I was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, went through several rounds of testing, and found out that I did not have a targetable mutation. Therefore, there were no drugs, targeted drugs to treat my cancer. So I had to go through traditional chemotherapy, immunotherapy, and then I also went through 2 clinical trials that unfortunately did not work either. So I have been dealing with this process for about 4.5 years, up until a miracle came knocking at my door, because I was told that there was no cure and that I would never be clear of no evidence of disease. Well, my pulmonologist actually referred me to a trial program where I actually got a bilateral lung transplant 2 months ago, and now I have been declared as having no cancer, so no evidence of cancer in the body. So that's a short version of my story.
That's an amazing version of your story. That's the only version we need.
Right.
All right. Thank you for being with me tonight, Natalie. I'm looking forward to our conversation. And coming up next is Miss Ruby Blow. You guys will recognize her as well. So Ruby, welcome to the platform and introduce yourself.
Thank you for having me again, Jaymie. Hello, Natalie.
Hi, Ruby.
I have a similar date of diagnosis as Jaymie. So I was diagnosed in December of 2018 with stage 4 non-small cell lung cancer, and my biomarker is ALK positive. And so I pretty much, within about a month and a half of diagnosis, I started with a medication to get me a couple of times to no evidence of disease, but throughout I have had, occasional breakthroughs of the cancer, and I had to switch medications. And now I'm actually on my 3rd medication. I'm on a clinical trial. So I'm excited about that because I'm actually feeling pretty good. Like I think it's successful, but I won't know until I have scans. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I like to engage in the lung cancer community as an advocate, but also as like support to other people living with lung cancer. So that's through support groups, because there's so much pressure as a patient, and then fiercely as an advocate to try to save our own lives, that you can kind of burn out. So yeah, so that's me.
Absolutely. So, Ruby, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Welcome to the show, ladies. I forgot to give you guys my lung cancer information. So, I'm also, again, stage 4, but ALK positive lung cancer. So, that is my biomarker. I was lucky enough, blessed enough, grateful enough to have a care team when I was treating in New York that just went ahead and did biomarker testing for me. I did not know to ask for it. I didn't even know it was a thing. They just went ahead and did it. And so I'm so glad they did because they literally saved my life. If they had just tried to give me chemo and radiation, I probably wouldn't be here today hosting a show. So I am grateful. I always try to pay it forward and talk about the importance of biomarker testing because I know that it's not a standard of care across the board and it really truly needs to be. But that being said, let's jump into it. So we are here tonight because there's a lot of us in this lung cancer community who are outliving that 5-year life expectancy. And it's wonderful news, but it also is bringing forward unique challenges because there's this idea of long-term medication issues. There's the mental, aspect of dealing with the disease this long. There's the financial aspect that comes with it, where you have to make tough decisions about your future and your finances, and not just yours, but your family's as well. There's also, of course, the emotional just like sort of toll that this puts on your body, just constantly being in your mind, thinking about, what's next? How long am I going to be here? So the quality of life is always going to be a little bit impacted by this kind of a disease. And so I wanted to kind of bring on to the stage a couple of ladies to discuss that tonight and some of the things that they've gone through, with the hopes that we can maybe share that with the audience and kind of give you guys a little bit of our perspective and things that if you are in this community as well and you're moving towards that 5-year survival mark, things that you can start to look forward to, or not look forward because that's not the right word, but things that you can look at or pay attention to as you're going through your journey. So first and foremost, the 5-year survival rate for lung cancer has increased drastically in the last decade. It went from, I believe it was 15% in 1995 to 1997, up to 27% from 2014 to 2020. And I think all of us here are kind of living proof of that, being as though we're sitting here several years into the game. And we're kind of navigating this sort of uncharted territory with cautious optimism, because we don't know what's next and we don't know what's coming, down the pipeline for us. So in 2025, lung cancer is estimated to represent 11% of new cancer cases in men and 12% of new cancer cases in women. So that being said, it's a little bit of a blessing, but it's also a curse at the same time. And the first part of this conversation that I want to jump into with you ladies is mentally, how are you doing? I know it's a loaded question, but mentally, being where we are, and me, I have scans tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon. So that is even crazier. So I'm dealing with anxiety and doing this podcast at the same time. It's the new normal, but how are you guys doing mentally with everything that's going on around you?
I'll let you go first, Ruby.
I was going to ask if you want me to go first.
Yes.
Well, I'm at an interesting kind of transition point because I was just finished a medication that I could have stayed on, but I made a leap of faith decision to switch to a different medication in hopes of improving my mental state, my cognitive state, my neurology, my cardiology, my endocrinology, my joints, to just give you an idea. And part of what you were talking about earlier, Jaymie, yes, some of the medications are great because they can help extend your life, but they can also, for some people, some of us, will experience more side effects. And so that was me. And I was just hoping that this new drug would be a little bit less negatively impactful for me in those other ways. And so far, I think it is. And I feel better. I feel like it's working, but I won't know till the scan time. So I get the scanxiety. I'm scheduled mid-March for scans, Jaymie and Natalie, and audience. So mentally, I'm actually at a time where I'm feeling better than I have probably in the past 3.5 years, because my prior drug, it could really cause heightened irritability and just not being able to manage as well. Many people wouldn't know, but every now and then somebody got the wrath. You know what I'm saying? Every now and then It was like, and so that wasn't something I would have ever done before. I could immediately tell on that medication. So I'm feeling a little bit better in terms of my mental state. I feel more like myself than I have in a while, but there's always that low grade anxiety, and sometimes it can be higher when you're dealing with lung cancer because you just don't know from day to day, month to month, week to week what's going to happen. But I think over time you begin to learn how to try to be more in the moment. You try to be more in the present and recognize there are some things that are beyond your control. And so right now I'm doing better than I have in a while, but I'm also anxiously anticipating what are the scans going to show. Is my brain scan going to be okay? Is my lung scan going to show improvement? And yeah, so better than I have been in a while, but hoping that it's warranted.
All right, put a pin in that clinical trial conversation because I want to
Mm-hmm.
circle back to that later on in the
Yeah.
talk here to jump into a little. But
Mm-hmm.
Natalie, how about you? With the news that you are cancer free now at this point, you've got to be feeling mentally pretty good, right?
So I'm in a weird space right now. I feel great because I no longer have cancer, but on the other side of it, I'm still dealing with side effects from chemo. I'm dealing with side effects from the organ transplant medication, like daily side effects that I'm dealing with that people have no idea. People automatically think like, "Hey, you're cancer free, so you know you're good." But I'm not technically good. I'm good from a cancer standpoint, but I still have a lot of side effects that I am dealing with. I'm still worried about, is the cancer going to come back? Number one, to the same place. Is lungs still going to be my primary? Is it going to come back at all? There's just so many things to worry about. Am I going to have is my organ medication going to work? So
Mm-hmm.
there's so many things that I'm still thinking about. So like I said, I'm happy, but at the same time, I'm kind of like it just in a mixed space right now.
Yeah, I understand. I definitely one of those people that were like, yeah, she's going to get new lungs and jump up and run laps around the hospital. Did not realize that the healing process for that was going to be so extensive. And so, can you talk a little bit about what that healing process is and what that looks like? Because I don't think people understand just how serious a double lung transplant is. I mean, they gave you a brand new set of lungs, like that's starting
Mm-hmm.
from scratch essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like I'm a brand new person. No, seriously. But yeah, so the recovery is pretty rough. Obviously, it's going to vary by the individual, but my surgery was pretty complicated from what I've been told and what I've read because my lungs were so diseased. It looks like they had issues trying to pull the lungs out. They had to call in another surgeon during the procedure. And so a lot of my pain is coming from the surgery within itself and then yanking the lungs, the old lungs out of me, putting the new ones in me. So I've been told, I mean, obviously, like, hey, I look fine. But like I told Jaymie, I'm a Papa Oxy. As soon as this is over with, just being transparent with you. But it's just a situation where I've been told I won't feel better probably until about a good 6 to 8 months. So I'm doing rehab 2 days a week now. It was 3 days a week, but because I've been in so much pain, we've had to kind of just shift a lot around. So the recovery is a lot. I mean, when I finally get to a point, I guess, where I am good, I'm going to be in a better space. But right now, I'm still just trying to recover.
So are there scans that you have to have on any kind of regular interval still, or like what does that look like for you post double lung transplant?
Yeah, actually, I have a PET and a CT scheduled next month. I still am going to be seeing the oncologist. So I'm in Chicago. I'm not sure if everybody knows. Had to move up to Chicago for a year. So while I'm under their care, I still will have to get regular scans as a part of this trial program that I'm actually in. When I get back to Atlanta, I'm not really sure what that'll look like, but right now I do still have to continue to get scans.
Got you.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll jump right into that because that's a great transition into the cost of long-term survivorship. And for you, I know that dropping everything and moving to Chicago just on a whim because, a set of lungs was ready for you was a little bit of probably a jarring experience. So, I mean, financially, like, were you working? What were you doing? Can you talk us through that whole process of like literally transitioning your life from being in Atlanta, having a beautiful home, no less, up to where you are in Chicago right now and what that looks like for you?
Yeah, sure. So everything was kind of like spur of the moment type situation. I mean, obviously we had a little time to prep, but not a whole lot. I had stopped working prior to coming up here just because of medical reasons, so it didn't have anything to do with this. But yeah, financially, part of this program, they don't pay for any housing or they don't pay for anything. I guess they say, hey, we're helping to save your life, so hey, that's what we're paying for, and I'm grateful for that within itself. But yeah, I mean, it's a financial situation. If you're not working, you have to come up here and find housing on your own, you still have to eat, you still have to drive. Well, I can't even drive, my car is up here, but I can't drive because I have limitations. But there's just so many things to factor into moving up here. I miss my husband, I miss my dog from an emotional standpoint. I miss my family, I miss my friends. It's just a lot of things that I miss. But my husband and I, Torrance, both determined, like, hey, no matter what the cost is or how it is, because this is the only chance at pretty much saving your life, hey, we're gonna make this work. Because I had pretty much been told by the hospital, like, hey, your lungs are trash, and unless you get these, you're not gonna survive.
Yeah,
So
that is terrifying. And I think just understanding what it takes to move and then to move in the condition that you're in, I know that that wasn't easy, and in terms of transitioning from one side of the country to another. I mean, we were talking before you even started about how cold it is in Chicago, no less. And I'm like, ooh, yeah, I remember I went there one time and never went back. So yeah, I just that part of it is, something that I don't think people understand. But financially, we run into these situations, and I've had this happen to me too, where I'm in this mindset where, like, mentally I'm in a great place. Mentally I feel good, and maybe I'm lying to myself, but mentally I feel good. Scans tomorrow, I'm trying to pretend like I'm not worried about them. But I also have this thing in the back of my mind where it's like, hey, you've got all this money for your 401k, like, are you really going to make it to retirement? Like, should you save it? Should you pay your
yes, you're gonna
debt? You
make
know
it.
what I mean? Like, those are the kind of questions and stuff that you have. It's like, well, if something happens to me and I end up in the hospital, or something happens to me and I can't work, and then all of a sudden now I'm, without, I don't want to, be a burden on my family, on my husband. It's like, I want to kind of get rid of the debt that I may have and things like that. And so these are the questions that people have to ask when you're in this cancer world, is like, okay, do I need my retirement money for retirement? Probably not. Hopefully I do. But, like, at the same time, it's like, do I want to pay this debt now and secure everything and be good? Or do I want to, keep this retirement income and keep contributing to this 401k, knowing that that may not necessarily be in the card? So it's like that part of that thinking process, that there's always this clock ticking above your head, where you're just like, I don't know what tomorrow's going to look like. I don't know what next week's going to look like. I don't know what next month's going to look like. And we all kind of live in these compartmentalized, time frames of scan to scan, month to month. Sometimes it's just day to day, if that's the best you can do. So it gets to be very difficult. And, Monique checks in on Facebook and says, tough conversations. Yeah, they're very tough conversations. That's conversations you have to have with yourself, your family, your loved ones, to discuss, like, what are we going to do if something does happen? So, Ruby, I want to jump to you a little bit and talk about the financial impact of your clinical trial, and if that is costing you anything, or are there any expenses that you didn't sort of foresee going through this process?
Well, there's so many layers to the financial conversation. And I actually want to roll back to the beginning for a moment, which is to say, as a self employed person, so much of my financial life changed when I got diagnosed, because at the time of my diagnosis, I was not doing well. I was really not feeling well. And I had to reduce my workload just to kind of get off the ground with treatment. And I still worked because I needed to support myself. And but one of the things that helped me is I had a catastrophic health insurance plan that I had actually bought probably 4 or 5 months prior to my diagnosis. And the reason why I bought it, and I got an indemnity health insurance plan and a few other things, is because I was worried that I was sick. I didn't think I had lung cancer, but I remember thinking, if I'm sick and something happens to me, what kind of resources will be left for my mom, who at the time I was, caring for, and she was living with Parkinson's dementia. So I got insurance, and I held out until my insurance kicked in, was like fully functional. And then one day I took myself to urgent care, and they sent me to the ER. And then from there, I started the process, and it took a while for that insurance to pay out, but it made a huge difference in those first several years because it was a lump payment. I won't tell y'all how much. It was a lump payment.
You got money.
I don't have none of that money anymore because I sure would break off something, Natalie, to help her in Chicago. I don't have that money anymore. But at that time, it was a lot. It literally was a lifesaver. So there's that. I think listen to your intuition, and your gut can be important for both your health and your financials. So that kind of helped me. And then in the present, I don't have any costs associated with being on the trial. The trial pays for the medical costs that I have, but I also can bill insurance for parts of it that insurance would pay for, like lab tests and things like that. And I've been really fortunate to just make some lucky / right or informed steps along the way that have helped me. Like for most of my years of treatment, I got treatment through a hospital system that had a foundation, and they provided some financial support medically for patients who needed it. So I could apply for help with foundation through the foundation to help me meet my deductible each year. Now, through being on the trial, that health system does not have a foundation that helps patients financially. They help by having clinical research. So now I have to, I'm trying to hustle a little bit more on my work side, which is hard because I don't really always feel up to it. And also, I do get support from my family. I have a sibling who's just been so graciously supportive of me that I can turn to when I need help. And actually, I don't even have to turn to her. She just is like, here you go. I know pay this insurance premium, take care of this, take care of that. And I am tremendously grateful. And then I have another sibling who literally is my care partner. That takes me to all my appointments, drives me, like Natalie talked about not being able to drive right now. That's been hard for me for several years. So the financial part can be anxiety provoking and challenging. I would say one of the things I have done is I've become more open about asking for and receiving help. In certain communities, in our community, I'll just say it, a lot of times, like you used the phrase, Jaymie, I don't want to be a burden to my family. That's a big thing for us. At the same time, sometimes for your family, it's a labor of love to be there for you. And
Yeah.
learning how to receive that support can be so important because we've literally watched people we know work till their dying day. And I don't wish that on anyone. If we have to, at whatever point earlier than expected in life, face an early death, I hope it could be a more peaceful transition than having to work, 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 work. So I would say, yes, work because we got to support ourselves, but also be open to where you can receive support because you'll find it if you're open to it.
Yeah, I saw a meme somewhere that was like, I'm probably gonna have to work until lunch on the day of my funeral. And I was like, that's funny, but not funny at the same time.
It's relatable. It's so relatable.
It is, like, goodness, when do I clock out?
Yeah.
But yeah, so for those listening, I think if you have, financial suggestions and things like that, have worked for you in the cancer community, please feel free to drop them in the chat. But some of the other things that financially we don't think about, or, sometimes we can think about, but we don't even know what to do about, are just the cost of ongoing medical procedures, when you're not working or when, your insurance may be denying and things like that. There's always the insurance challenges that come with it. So, increased premiums. Heaven forbid you don't have life insurance and you try to get some with cancer. Like, forget about it. There's no point. I will forever kick myself for letting my life insurance policy lapse, before I got this diagnosis. I was like,
but you were how old, Jaymie?
I mean, I was in my late 20s. I wasn't thinking about life insurance like that. I just happened to have it. And then I was like, I'm fine. And then boom, you know what I mean? So let that be a lesson to you folks out there. Get your life insurance now while you're young and healthy, because it's going to pay off later on, especially since they're poisoning us, but we won't go into that.
Well, Jaymie, can I say one more thing about tips? pay attention to which hospital systems where you live do have foundations that help financially. Get your insurance while we have it through the healthcare marketplace if you can.
Right.
If you don't have insurance through a job, like if you're self-employed, those things have helped. And try to get an insurance plan that pays at 100% after you meet your deductible. Because then, if you happen to be someone, a survivor who does have a lot of medical impacts, like Natalie was talking about, and that's been my story. I have so many appointments all the time. If I had to every time pay out of pocket, I wouldn't be able to do it. I just wouldn't be able to afford it. So trying to get a plan that will cover you after you meet your deductible, trying to go to a health system that has financial support for their community. Like, I went to see a specialist in Tennessee at Vanderbilt. I was on the way there still thinking, gosh, how am I going to pay for this appointment? Because ain't nobody said nothing about money. And I call, and I was waiting on a call back from their financial office, and they called me and they said, Miss Bo, your care, it's already paid for through our foundation. I
What?
hadn't even I hadn't even applied, but I went to a hospital system that had a foundation. I was coming from out of state. They even had housing at a hotel where you could pay half the price if you were going to an appointment at their hospital system. So, be be open to finding those hospitals because they are priceless.
Yeah, I think as well. One of the things I've come across too is the cost of some of these TKIs that we take, and that's the medications that you'll find in some of the biomarkers and stuff like that, in within those industries. They're expensive. I mean, $15,000 a month, $10,000 a month, they get up there. And if you
Mhm.
lose your insurance coverage or something happens and financially you just can't get it, there
Mhm.
are ways to reach out to the manufacturer of that medication to see what they offer. Sometimes they'll offer, whether I don't know if it's free, but sometimes they'll offer help, guidance, assistance,
Right.
partnership with different organizations who can get it for you. So there are ways to get your medication if something catastrophic happens with your pay or your health care or
Mhm.
anything like that. So keep those things in mind if you're in this community and you're worried about what am I going to do if I can't afford my medication.
Mhm.
There was a time when I was in between switching jobs, and I had like a 2 week period where I didn't have that same insurance. And the company called me and they're like, yeah, your copay for this medicine is 3,500. And I said, it's absolutely not. It's like, yeah, no, not going to do it. Can't do it. And even if I had to pay out of pocket for my medication, I wouldn't be here. I'd be like, look, I gave it a good long run. I did the best I could. Like, I don't
Mhm.
have the options for that. A lot of us don't have $15,000 monthly just hanging around in an account waiting for us to need it. So
Mhm.
make sure you plug into your resources. There are ways to get that medication, whether it's discounted or free. It's up to the avenues that you check into, but there are ways to get your medication where you don't have to pay that full total cost.
Mhm.
Ladies, anything else you want to throw in here about financial considerations for long-term survival?
One more thing that I want to mention that is, you know, I have a community of support that I call Team Ruby. I don't know if any of them are in the house except for y'all because I think we're on each other's team. But they, when I try to do like some fundraising, whether it's to help support a cancer a cause like organizations I'm affiliated with, or to like plan an event within the lung cancer community, that my Team Ruby is like my fellow mental health professionals, my former students, my classmates from college and high school, my extended family and friends. And undoubtedly, when I put out a call like, hey, y'all, I need help with this, that, or the other, they come through. And so I sometimes asking, putting it out there, how someone can show up for you, because there are people probably rooting for you. I think don't keep your cancer in the dark. Don't be closeted about your journey. Allow people to show up. And so I think that part is important financially. Like, I had my washing machine break down one time, and one of my very good friends from grad school, she and her friends and family raised money and bought me a brand new washing machine.
Hmm.
Aw, see?
I was just existing that day, literally about to go out the door and try to find a scratch and dent, beat up washer. I mean, I'm not ashamed. I was going to have the broke down washer. And she called me. She was like, "Did you get a washing machine yet?" And I was like, "No, I'm just mustering to get out the house." And she goes, "Don't. I'm look at this one online. Tell me if this is good." And y'all, I could see through the top of the washer. I never had a washing machine like that before. So honestly, I know some of y'all might be like, what? No, be open to receiving help and support. Like, you will be surprised at people who will, it's not always money. Sometimes it's just help, whether they brought some food or I've had people just show up in tremendous ways, but also just feeling that feeling of gratitude and just being open about your journey. And that can be priceless. Asking for what you need and also being open.
Yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want to add, Natalie?
No, I'm good.
Yeah. So the other thing that we have to consider too, as long-term survivors of this ridiculous, terrible disease, is the idea of like the emotional aspects that come with it. There's so much baggage that comes with having a disease like this that I don't think we all jump into or understand sometimes. One of the main things, and Natalie, you'll probably know this one because you've already talked about it, is just that fear of recurrence, and even on my side, it's the fear of the scans, to be honest with you, because every time I go in for scans, I'm like, is this the one? Is this going to be the one? Like, is this going to be the one? Mm-hmm. You never know, because it's, especially when you've been on a medication for a long period of time, that, if you're on that medication longer than the average time a person is on a medication, every scan after that is a little scarier than the next, because you just keep waiting for that other shoe to drop. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel great, but you know what? I did have a headache yesterday, or, I feel great, but I had a shortness of breath randomly going up the steps. And so you constantly start questioning every little thing about your day to day. Like, does this mean, what I think it means? There was a time where I had, one of my original symptoms before I got my diagnosis was back pain. And I didn't realize that it was attributed to the lung cancer, because I was taking kickboxing and just figured it was like, hey, girl, you're out of shape and you're punching and whatnot, so your back is tight because you're over 30 and you're doing high intensity cardio. And so, not having any sort of baseline to think that I had lung cancer, since there's no history of cancer in my family, I never considered that that's what it was. Mm-hmm. And so at one point in time when I was living in Savannah, it wasn't even around scan time. I think it was just in general, like regular life. I had some back pain, and I kept thinking to myself, this feels like the back pain I had when I first got my diagnosis. And then I started panicking, thinking, oh my gosh, the tumors are back, oh no, I literally had like a small little mini panic attack in my closet, just like, I don't know how I'm going to react when that shoe does drop. Like, I really, the fear of what's next is terrifying. Like, you get into with cancer, it's like you get into this lane and you're like, okay, this is my lane and everything's okay. I got these side effects here and there that I deal with, but like, this is my new normal and I'm okay here. And then something catastrophic happens and you swerve into another lane and you're like, okay, it's new here and I don't like it and I don't know what to do. And so that fear of the swerve is, kind of where I live constantly. And I put on a brave face, but honestly, it can be a pain in the ass. I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say it. It's a pain in the butt, because it takes some of the joy out of living, because you're just worried that something's going to happen.
Is it okay if I jump in?
Of course.
I think that it's natural to fear reoccurrence. But one of the things that helped me, I know this is probably not for you, Jaymie, but one of the things that helped me is in the ALK community, one of the ALK community, for those who can't tell what we're saying, is it's not about if there will be reoccurrence, it's about when.
Yeah.
Now, that can be anxiety provoking, but it also, for me, was like to not make reoccurrence mean something terrible, because there are still treatment options for you, especially having been on one TKI, even though some of the other ones can be kind of scary. But look, I'm a guinea pig. I'm out here on a trial so that you can have a better drug in the future. So you're welcome.
Thank you for your sacrifice.
You're welcome, Jaymie. But honestly, no, it is like, you don't want to regret the time you spent living in anxiety. Like, it is something now that is not necessarily under our control. You do the best you can to be healthy, active, you drink your water, you're doing your things. But so I guess what I'm saying is the way I've dealt with progression, which I've had several times, whether it's in my lung or I've had progression in my brain. And it's not going to feel good if and when it happens. Leave your crap feeling time until then. I would say try to enjoy life. I know it's not easy to do, but we never know what those scans are going to show, and you don't want the present to be ruined. My anxiety is not about what's the scan gonna show. My anxiety is about the physical experience of being inside of like the MRI, for example. So it's different for each person
Yeah.
what their anxiety is about. Like to me, it's like the result's gonna be what it is, and I'll deal with it when we get the answers. But meanwhile, I don't like to be in that tunnel with the mask over my face and the things. And so I take a little anxiety medication at that time, to get through it. So for each person, we can't compare our experiences. Everybody is different. Um, but I think in a way, people who haven't had a lot of progression like you, Jaymie, you kind of see everyone else around you like, oh my God, when's it gonna be? When's it gonna be
A
me?
little bit, yeah. It's a little nerve-wracking.
And you just have to remember not to compare your journey. We're all different.
I know. I say that all the time too. So shame on me for not taking my own advice.
I got
Also,
you.
Side note, it's 2025. We got to do better with the MRIs. There has to be a better way. Like, come on.
Look, if they don't include the mammograms, they definitely not going to improve.
Oh my God. Mammograms even worse. It's like, this is what we're doing. I got to put like, come on, man. Like, there has to be a better way.
So only reason why I wanted to jump in is because look, I'm probably looking after Natalie a little bit because she looked like she's fading like a little bit like y'all.
I know.
No, I'm good.
How are you doing, Natalie?
No, I'm all right. I was just going to say it's the opposite for me. I guess I don't have a problem with the machines. It's just the results that I have an issue with.
Right.
And for some reason, I guess as soon as I take these scans, my results come back in like 2 hours and they're released on the portal and the doctor hasn't even reviewed them. And I'm just like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I'm sitting up here with these results. The doctor hadn't reviewed them. I'm out at a restaurant. Do I look? Do I not look? Torrance, my husband, is like, don't look. And I'm like, screw it. I'm looking. And then I look and I see something that I know it don't make sense. And I start crying at the restaurant. And he says, oh, well, I'm sure that's not what that means. I'm like, I've had probably 500 scans. I know what this means. And naturally, by the time I talked to the doctor, I knew what that meant. So I think all that is just to say, basically, I don't like checking my chart when my scans come through. I think they need to hold them. But then we got to a point where my doctor and I had a very good relationship and she would actually call me as soon as it came through. So I don't know which one I was ready for worst. I know one day, literally, I was TMI on the toilet when she called and she was like, Natalie, we have some progression, and I almost fell out on the toilet. So, I don't think it's really a good time to deliver the information, whether it's on a portal or whether it's a phone call. Like Ruby said, that part of it is just going to be what it's going to be. But I will tell you, Jaymie, some of these machines up here at the hospital that I've been going to, they're actually like a little bigger than the ones back at home.
That'd be great because I feel like it's like a toilet paper tube. Like you're literally this big. Like you could feel it rubbing against your arms as you go in there. And then they're like, oh, we're gonna put this hockey mask on you. And they're like, do you want headphones? And I'm like, no, this is too much sensory deprivation. Like, what are you doing to me?
I went into this MRI recently where the person also wrapped something around me, like with a Velcro to wrap my arms.
A Velcro?
If I had not been on Ativan, I would have been totally freaking out.
I'm freaking out.
Anxiety medication just pulled it back in.
Wow.
I don't think there's enough anxiety medication to get me through being strapped to a table and put in a tube. I don't think it's gonna work.
Especially, Jaymie, if you've never been on it, there is some. Now, I do not look at my scan results by myself. It's not tempting to me because I know that feeling of reading something I don't understand, but knowing that it's some kind of progression, and then I'm upset. I just won't so we all have different approaches. Sometimes the curiosity can get to you and you just have to see, but I don't mind waiting but I might contact my provider and say, can you look at this and see if we need to talk about something? So, depending on, where my mindset is, I might do that. So we all have different ways of approaching and strategizing, dealing with, what y'all are hearing with long-term survivorship is some of the fear doesn't go away. You just have to figure out how you're gonna live with it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
My chart is a blessing and a curse at the same time. I feel the same way you guys both do in different times. Like for some, like, yeah, I'll look at the results. And other times I'm like, I don't. There's times where I'm confident. And then there's other times where I'm like, nope, not going to do it. So yeah, it's nice that the information is there, but it also is very, it's like the apple on the forbidden tree. Like, do you want to look at it and know? Do you not want to know? So it
Mhm.
definitely, I feel your pain on both of those. But let's talk a little bit about like the PTSD of this disease. There
Mm.
are certain hospitals that I can't even step foot in anymore because I just associate them with really terrible health experiences. Do you guys have that
Mm.
same situation?
Mm, not really.
Yeah,
Not really.
I'm
Not for me.
surprised.
Not really. I don't think so. I'm thinking. I don't really think so though.
It's just like I have flashbacks and nightmares of like thoracentesis and like just every time I go into certain, like I remember when I went into a certain hospital, every time I went in there, I would get some kind of bad news when I was first getting my diagnosis. Like the first time I went to that hospital, the doctor was like, oh yeah, it's lung cancer. And I was like, what? You know what I mean? The next time I went to that hospital, he's like, oh, it's stage 4. And I'm like, every time I come in this damn
Mm.
hospital, you have worse news for me. And so
Yeah,
every time I went in there, it was like, immediately I was triggered because
yeah.
I just felt like nothing good was coming from that building, and I would walk out of that building constantly changed every time I went in there. So,
Well, there is a concept related to trauma, emotional trauma that, and probably, of course, physical trauma that the body remembers. So, even if it's not overwhelming stress and anxiety, when we're in certain places where things have happened, our memory track can start to play. And if it was a bad memory, you're not going to feel so good, right? And so I definitely experienced some of that, but I don't know that I would say that I was traumatized. It's more so hearing the worst news of your life.
Yeah.
That's just real. It's like it's just not a pleasant memory. But if I have to go here for whatever reason, I'm still going to go. And I had to return to that hospital multiple times to deal with my mom's care. So, sometimes we have to just keep pushing, for ourselves or for someone else that we're responsible for.
yeah,
Hmm.
Mhm.
I agree. It's for me, like I said, it's just the worst news of my life and subsequent newses of my life happened in that hospital. I'm just like, I don't want to go in there. Nope.
Yeah, it's like an association thing. But the reality is, it could happen at a different hospital.
Yeah,
You can't avoid all of them, right? So it's like, you
can,
know,
but it's detrimental.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I sometimes what I try to associate with that tough memory is, thank goodness I found out at least when I did, because I don't know how much longer I would have had. I had a
Yeah,
collapsed lung, a lot of fluid, and I, thank goodness that night I just said, I'm tired of not being able to breathe. And I had heard about a colleague's death from a clot in their lung. And I said, gosh, wonder if I have one of those, not thinking in a million years lung cancer. So it's the shock of it sometimes too, Jaymie, that I think makes it so PTSD-ish, is like being younger. I was 44 when I was diagnosed. I'll be 51 in February. So I'm
hey,
glad to be turning 51. But there's that traumatic, like, I would never have expected this to happen in my life. And
yeah,
then there you are. So it is shocking. Like, there's still those moments where it's like, huh, this happened. And it's still happening. That's why some of us, even though you're going through a lot, Natalie, we're so excited for you to get off the lung cancer train, even though you're in the long-term recovery train right now. And
Thank
yeah.
you.
Can I tell you how like emotional I got watching your ringing the bell video? I was like, oh my God, look at my girl. I was so excited for you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I was excited too. I don't think it really hit me then. It didn't hit me until I actually, like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, when I officially saw the oncologist. And he seemed so like not worried about anything. And I was just looking at him. He was like, yep, not concerned about cancer coming back anytime soon. You're good. There's no cancer. I mean, he was just like, and I was just like, what?
You never thought you would hear that.
Right.
Yeah. So I was like calm, but I was like freaking out at the same time. Like I just kept asking questions, like to make sure we understood each other, but we did. So
Right. Are we speaking the same language?
right.
Let me just make sure I understood this correctly.
Right.
Yeah, I think so my doctor told me 4 to 6 years was my prognosis, right? Which I wish doctors would not do that, but it's my fault. I asked the question. But anyway, 6 years for me was December of last year. And so I like moonwalked over that threshold. Granted, I'm like 1 month past that at this point, but I still count that as a win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So every moment past 6 years for me is like in your face, you know?
Right.
So I think that's how I reclaim the trauma from that building, is like by slowly dismantling everything that they said about me and told me about my diagnosis, and, you know, hitting those benchmarks and moving past them. So I think that's how I'm reclaiming it a little bit, but you know, there's still some feelings there that I feel like if I went in there, like the scars from my catheter will probably like tingle like Spider-Man or something like that. You know, like, I don't know. I just feel like it's just always going to be a part of, you know, some kind of trigger system for me, but I think I'm slowly taking it back.
Well, I will also say I would be remiss as a mental health professional if I didn't say there are certain therapies that can be very beneficial for that kind of trauma. It's like a reprocessing, and they can be short sessions, like not long-term therapy. So if you're ever interested, Jaymie, I can maybe share more details with you about it privately.
We still hustling.
Look, not for me. I don't practice this particular type of therapy, but I do know, I can tell you what it is and how to find it. But that's for anyone who's interested. In fact, my details for my practice is called Development Counts. So if y'all look up developmentcounts.com, you can message me through there. But I'm not taking therapy clients. I stopped taking clients when I got diagnosed because I never wanted to have my clients lose their therapist. So
yeah,
I didn't want to die on my clients. So I stopped practicing therapy. But what I do is I support other clinicians in their licensure and in their practice development. So so my business is called Development Count. So it perfectly already fit with that.
That is a deep thought that you just dropped at the end of this
episode. I was like, wait, what?
Both me and Natalie are like,
well, I've had friends who their therapists that they saw long-term died. And so I know that can be very, difficult for clients when their therapist dies. So I didn't know when I got diagnosed, like you said, Jaymie, we get this feedback that, okay, people have lived this long with this type of cancer and this treatment. And I didn't know what that was going to be for me. And I just made a decision that I wanted to be able to focus more on my well-being mentally and not have to pour so much into my clients. So, yeah. I know I said it real matter of fact, but that's how I have to think about things. That's we all have different ways that mine is to kind of try to face it more head on.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to go over with you ladies before I let you go and give you actually an opportunity to shout out your contact information so folks can take advantage of some of those resources that you've been sharing. The emotional and fatigue, the burnout that comes from that. Can we talk through how you guys are coping with that? I know with the medication that I'm on, fatigue is a normal part of life, but I don't think it's ever gotten any better. I think I've just learned how to cope with the fatigue and how to work it into my regular everyday life. It's like Donna checked in before the episode. She wanted to be with us tonight, but she's going through her own battle right now. She just got out of the hospital. And so she was talking about, how we try so hard to incorporate our regular lives into our new normal and the fatigue and exhaustion that comes from that. Because it's like, some of us are working, all the way up to when we have a scan, and then we're taking off work real quick to go to the scan, and then we're right back to work or working during. So a lot of times it's like this idea of how normal can I make my life while still inserting my cancer care into things that
Mhm.
really can burn you out and really can make you feel like, why am I so tired? And it's like you realize, oh, because you're still trying to live normal life while still incorporating your new normal. And
Mhm.
you haven't rested from either of the two.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about how maybe you guys are managing some of the fatigue and burnout that may come from the diagnosis and just having had it for such a long time. And, Natalie, now with you dealing with this new normal of having a brand new set of lungs, and how do I navigate this new life and incorporate healing into all of this while I'm still trying to figure it all out?
Yeah, I would say as far as with me, it's been extremely difficult even before and now. Before it was difficult because I worked pretty much up until last year. A lot of my companies didn't even know I had cancer, so I was traveling and doing things as normal. I was extremely fatigued. I didn't have a way to cope with it. I mean, I was taking like stimulants and drinking coffee and Red Bulls and all that, but I mean that wasn't working at the end of the day. So it's kind of like a fake it till you make it type situation. But now with this situation being a little different, I don't necessarily deal with fatigue, which is completely different. So I do feel like a different human. However, I am still dealing with um, I guess I get tired quick now just because I'm in the recovery phase. So if I do
Mhm.
too much or I walk too much, obviously I'm just getting tired. So right now, kind of what's helping me is I'm more like on this mental train. I'm trying to do more things that stimulate me mentally. Like, say, for instance, my best friend, God bless her heart, she came up here from the Bahamas to be with me in this freezing cold weather. And she took the time this weekend just to like take me out, just to try to get me to forget about my situation, aside from I'm dealing with like other family situations also. So me just being able to, I think, kind of be around people that I like, of course, is helping me from a mental standpoint. I need more so like right now, I need to be around people. A lot of phone calls don't really do me any good. I'll just be completely transparent with you. I'm a
Mhm.
texter anyway, so it's better that you text me than you call me anyway. But I guess right now I just need to be around people. That's kind of helping stimulate me mentally.
You hear that, ladies? It sounds like we need a lung
I
cancer
Sounds
trip
like
up to
road trip or
Chicago.
something. Let's get a van or something.
I got a
But
winter coat ready.
that makes so much sense because I think Natalie, my joke with Natalie used to always be out here in these streets. Like Natalie was always on the go,
Yeah.
and you were probably a person who socially, like you recharge through socialization. And Sydney's in the chat. Uh, and so that makes sense what you're saying that in person is better for you. We hear you. We heard that. And hopefully some of us
wink,
can
wink.
respond to that. Yeah, I can't
Nudge,
even wait.
nudge.
I can't wait. But so but for me, what was it was about? Like your question was, how do we deal with fatigue or fatigue,
Yeah, how
right?
do you deal with the burnout and the fatigue of just having this for so long and dealing with the tiredness that comes with, number one, battling it, but just number two, just in general, the fatigue that comes with having this disease in general?
I was actually talking to my social worker today. I have like a monthly individual counseling social work through my palliative care team, and I call it being overwhelmed. Is how I feel a lot of the time, like because I don't have the full energy all the time to do the things I used to be able to do, and but when I'm feeling better about how I'm dealing with the fatigue, it's because I give myself permission to not do it all, to sometimes say no or to set limits or to reroute and say, I'm sorry, I can't do this, and just take some more time for myself. Um, that's sometimes what I do. And a lot of times I'm walking on faith that things are going to work out. Like that I could not fulfill XYZ, but that doesn't mean that something else won't come to fruition. And that I guess y'all have heard me talk about that a few times, but that's kind of how I've operated and life has unfolded in ways to support me because, um, sometimes my fatigue will be, I can't do anything that day, period, you know? And, but other times on this new drug trial, I feel so much better. I don't even almost know what to do with it. I'm like, you mean I can get up and walk right now across the room
Mm.
and I'm gonna feel okay? So it's hopeful. And now I'm trying to build strength and maybe do some PT. Like Natalie's talking about, and do some respiratory therapy. And so give yourself permission to rest, I think, is a big part of it. I get every other week massage therapy that helps me with some pain management, helps me with some rest. Sometimes I'm on the table snoring. You know what I'm saying? Just like I want to stay awake to enjoy the massage, but I'm just tired. So I sleep. So, and I also get sleep medicine. Meaning I have a sleep medicine doctor I meet with to talk about sleep because I struggled with sleep on my last medication. So pay attention to what your issues are and do something about your particular issue that you can, that's dealing with the fatigue. Sometimes for some people, it's taking a nap and working naps into your day. Um, that can be beneficial. Sometimes you need sleep equipment while you're sleeping. That's me. I needed to have some sleep equipment to help me with my breathing while I sleep. So, do the things that you can do to improve your rest so that it can help you deal with fatigue.
I'm just smiling because like we're human. We're so human. And I it feels weird saying that, but I just feel like so often like we just go through all of these things so quietly. Like nobody knows all the struggles that we deal with and all the stuff that we're going through.
Yeah.
And it's just such a hidden disease. And so to like just see you guys sitting here with me and we're just talking through life, like it's just such a humanizing
Yeah.
thing that we're doing for lung cancer. Like we're really putting a face to this disease. It's like, look, we are surviving and we're making it happen.
Yeah.
So in whatever way we have to do it, it may look different for each one of us, but we're making it happen. And I just think it's amazing. It just hit me when you guys were talking. I'm like, look at us out here just
Look how we learn new things about each other too. Like we communicate a lot, but we still can learn new things about each other.
Yeah.
And survivorship, no matter how you feel about the term, when I first heard it, I was like, I'm still fighting this thing. Why am I being called a survivor? But the more I've lived with it, the more I understand that it is like you have to keep actively pushing for your life.
Yeah.
You have to just don't give up, and whatever that means for you, and keep pushing.
Yeah. Every aspect of this disease tries to break you down, and every time it doesn't, it's you surviving. So that's how I look at survivorship.
That's right.
And so we're just long term. It just means we're seasoned. It means we've been there, we've done that, we've seen it before, and we've got arsenals and tools up our sleeves to combat the different things that are going to come our way. And if we don't, then we got a team of resources and friends who may have gone through it themselves and they can help us. So, ladies, I know Natalie's fading and she's got to get to her medication. I want to give you guys an opportunity.
You already know.
Right. Like, I'm waiting to pop this pill. Go ahead, give your contact information, where people can follow up with you. Natalie, drop your GoFundMe link if you can, so that folks can donate if necessary. And just where people can connect with you to get more information or just to show you love and support.
Awesome.
Y'all can reach me through developmentcounts.com. You can send me a message if we're not already connected on social media, where I'm my name, Ruby Blow, BLOW. To join the chat, I got to log into YouTube and all that. So hopefully y'all caught that. Thank you, Heal Collaborative. I'm looking at you. And so that's a good way to reach me if you want. And I like to do advocacy community talks about wellness and mental health as a lung cancer survivor. So, yeah.
All right, Natalie, you're up next.
I was actually trying to put mine in the chat.
I know. I'm gonna try and find it for you. You go ahead and give your.
I put my GoFundMe in the chat, but I'm on Instagram a lot at Natalie_B10, and on Facebook just by my first and last name right now. So that's where you can find me the most.
Awesome. And folks, you can find me at, I do this every time, but I know it this time, TikTok. If you're still on TikTok, I am, it's Just Jams on TikTok. I am Jaymie Jam on Facebook. I'm also just underscore jams on Instagram. And of course, make sure you follow Heal Collaborative. They're on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram as well. And make sure if you haven't had the opportunity, please register for the African American Lung Cancer Patient and Caregiver Summit #2, happening in Houston, Texas this April from the 24th to the 26th. It is free to attend. Your travel and accommodations are paid for. So if you are in the lung cancer community, there is no reason for you to not go. So please check it out. If you missed it the first time around, you don't want to miss it the second time. So I will drop a link to registration in the chat below. Otherwise, I hope everybody has a safe and happy rest of January. The last couple of days that are here, finally made it through January. It felt like 52 days of a month. But anyway, I appreciate everybody for tuning in tonight. Everybody who connected with us, left love and support in the chat. Anyone who's connected with us outside of this as well. Just thank you guys for your support and your love. Thank you, ladies, for joining me tonight and taking time out of your evening to just talk through this long-term survivorship concept. I think we did a lot of good for the community as well. So thank you again for your time. And
Thank
folks,
you.
I will catch you next month on the next episode of Voices That Heal. Until next time, be safe and we'll see you then.
Bye. Thank you, ladies. Have a good night. Bye.